Hey, everybody, welcome to Movie Bros, your favorite movie podcast where we talk about an old school pick and a new hit and break it down for you. My name is Mike Mercadal, in for Nary Signs, who cannot be with us today. But we have with us, as usual, at Tabletop Gamer Girl herself, Hilda.
Hi, friends.
And we have very special guest, Manny, at Fighting Actor. Manny Brown, you are you're like a little legend in our group because you are. We've talked about how much we love kung. We've talked about how much we love martial arts movies. In the originator of this show, Kick Flicks, which was like where the kind of this idea jumped off, and you were always like, "Oh, we got to have Manny on to talk about." Because tell us a little bit about what you've done and what you do.
Well, I'm an actor and a martial artist. I used to compete in martial arts tournaments when I was a kid. In fact, that's Hilda and I have a whole martial arts connection from when we were in high school.
Yeah. Actually, it's how we became frids.
Yeah. Actually, we became friends before that because you were nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I found out you did martial arts. But yeah, I did martial arts and acting growing up, and now that's what I do for a living. I act and I pretend to fall in love with people and hate people, and I pretend to get beat up.
That's great.
I was doing the math. I was doing the math, Manny, and Manny and I go back. I think we're at about 28 years of friendship.
Yeah, something like that.
This year, and Manny was the nice guy in choir, and I was the nice girl in band, and those two things shared a building, and so we became friends there. And
then realized. You guys having a full blown out fight in the rain, very dramatic on the roof of the building, like choir versus band.
we should have.
That would have been pretty good.
Well, we actually did. We did have a faux fight twice in high school. We entered our high school talent show because we realized we both did martial arts, and we won 2 years in a row.
Hell yeah! Well, so you definitely have some bona fides in that world, and also who doesn't? You've always been on our mind for guests to talk about movies and stuff, and we're very happy to have you. Thank you for being here to talk about ironically action-packed combo of Super Mario Bros. And Twins, the Schwarzenegger DeVito classic. Basically, what is the connection here? Tall brother, short brother scenario. I think that's what we're talking
siblings. I think we're going for siblings today. As
siblings.
Yes, brothers. Brothers, twins. We're going for siblings today.
We're going for siblings. We're also going for two movies that have very nostalgia bomb things in them for me because I've Twins came out in 1988, and for some reason that was like one of the VHSs that we owned. So of course in your home you watch it a million times, but both of these had, and Super Mario Bros. Picking all of the Easter eggs was super nostalgia bomby for me. Did you? Let's start. Well, we'll start the way we always do. We're going to talk about the new hit and then the classic, right?
Yep.
The new hit, Super Mario Bros., came out this year, and it stars Chris Pratt, which we'll talk about. Anya Taylor-Joy and Charlie Day. Chris Pratt is Mario. Anya Taylor-Joy, Princess Peach, Charlie Day. And then we have, here's the storyline. A Brooklyn plumber, they really leaned into the Brooklyn thing, named Mario travels through the Mushroom Kingdom with a princess named Peach and an anthropomorphic mushroom named Toad to find Mario's brother Luigi and to save the world from a ruthless fire-breathing Koopa named Bowser, not billed on IMDb, played by Jack motherfucking Black. So, we'll start with the guest today. Guest first, Manny. What was your mindset going into this movie? What is your your elevator pitch? Your first impressions?
Well, I always IMDb a movie before I go see it, and I generally trust their ratings more than I trust Rotten Tomatoes ratings.
Interesting.
So,
all right.
And it had a high rating, so I was like, okay, I'm excited about it. Maybe it's going to be like a really clever thing. I went to see it, and the first 20 minutes, I was expecting to be laughing a lot. I actually didn't laugh that much the first 20 minutes, and I was kind of like, I started to question that rating. And then things started to pop up that did make me laugh. I did feel like it wasn't quite worth the rating it was on IMDb. Although there were things about it that were funny. I thought the training sequence where he's where he's training and he's failing over and over again.
Yeah,
that was dope. I had to give it up for that. And I did like when I think it was when Cooper first showed up, and all those things shoot these things at him, thinking it's gonna stop him, and then it does nothing.
Yeah,
there's kind of stand there.
Yeah, there was a lot of. How could you not know a little bit about what a Super Mario brother is going into it? Yeah. So I can only imagine they went in with like everybody had some level of expectation. It's one of the most recognized characters in the world is Mario.
Yeah.
So from Nintendo, so it's like I'm sure there was a lot of like going into the movie. It was also hard to kind of detach. So I completely understand that. Hilda, what was your first impressions?
So the last one that came out was a bit of a disappointment. So I didn't know.
Talk about it.
I know, but I did. But I loved I loved that game, right? Like I loved that game. So I was hoping, right? I was hoping I was going to love it. And I did. I did love it. I found it to be, I loved the things that were unexpected. And then I also loved the things like all the nostalgia bombs, right? Mm-hmm. So, like what Manny, so the things that were unexpected, let me start there. I loved that Peach wasn't like the damsel in distress.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. I loved that she was like this badass fighter and she was just like, let's do this. Like, I gotta save my kingdom. Mario's there because he's not saving the princess. He's saving his brother. And like, he will go into unknown worlds to save his brother. And I loved that. So that was completely unexpected, but it just hit me in the feels. And I was like, oh, I love this. Like, I love this little twist on it. I love that it's not just like the game, like he's just trying to get to the castle to save the princess. Right.
Sure.
And he needs Peach as much as, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, you know, this world, I don't. And so they make this really great team, right? They each have something they're trying to save. So I loved that angle for it, which I'm the opposite. I was like, I'm going to go in and not read a lot about it. I'm just going to go. Like, I'm just going to go, like, just blinders up. Like, don't tell me if critics are loving it or hating it. I just want to go in and be surprised.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. No, and then one last thing. I absolutely loved that it was just like, I felt like I was just like diving into like a bag of starbursts like the whole time. Like visually, that's colorful. Like a whole other thing, but the colors and everything just felt like these like jelly beans that I just wanted to eat.
Yeah, for sure.
Visually, I was loving it the whole time.
Yeah, so we should say that this movie was made by the Illumination people, which is the Despicable Me's, which I love. The Despicable Me's. I don't care about the Minions, but the story of Gru. I love all of the Despicable Me movies and the vibe of those movies because they feel very anti-Pixar, if that makes sense. Like they're not necessarily. They feel more like in on the joke of the animated, if that makes sense. It feels like Don Bluth movies. We're talking about this in the chat, where like it felt like they feel more mature for some reason to me than Pixar movies. And this movie, first impression, I did not want to go see it because I did hear about the Chris Pratt stuff, and they were like, oh, they should have gotten the guy who does the voice of Mario, whatever. But there's been so many games that have come out to fill out the Mario universe that I was like, well, everyone's going to have their own thing that they're going to be like, oh, they're missing this. This is the thing that I wanted to talk about. You know, where's Yoshi and all that stuff. I was watching the whole movie waiting for Yoshi to show up. And spoiler alert, you know, it comes in at the end and then this post-credit scene for the sequel. They show the egg, but no Yoshi. And I was like, oh, that's cool. But they include Donkey Kong, which is not really part of the Mario thing because
but it is a Miyamoto. It's in the Miyamoto universe.
It's right. It feels more multiversey, but I wish they would have kept it all Mario because it started to feel very much like a Super Smash Brothers situation where it was like I'm gonna have Donkey Kong fight this guy and this guy fight that guy, and I went in with way too many expectations. So I realized like I had to stop the movie and then I started it over again because I was like I'm I didn't see it in the theater. I was watching it at home.
Okay.
So it was like, oh, I got to give it for what it is, because my favorite Mario thing is Super Mario RPG, and Mario doesn't talk in that whole game. Mario doesn't have any dialogue. He jumps. That's all Mario does. But all the other characters are, and I'm like, oh, that's perfect. They wouldn't have had to answer any questions about the Mario voice. It would have just been the world happening around Mario, because that's really much more interesting. Nobody cares about an Italian plumber. They care about this fucking Starburst candy world with
right.
with you know what I mean? Like there's just like, it's interesting what they chose. In my mind, I was like, I don't know. I will say by the first few minutes of the movie, you kind of forget Chris Pratt is the voice, and it's just whatever. But I do think Jack Black as King Koopa as Bowser was the fucking best.
Yeah, I agree.
Amazing.
I did have a thought on that, right? Because at first it threw me off that the accent wasn't there, right? Charles Martinet, though, who did the original voice, he does play their father, and he also plays Giuseppe, who's he's like a citizen of Brooklyn, right? So he was in there. So the accent did throw me off, and I was like, okay. But then I thought about it, right? And so I was kind of like, okay, if he's like me, right, and he's a first gen born in the United States, like I don't have a heavy Spanish accent, right? Like when I speak English. And so it's not, I don't mean to say it like an excuse, but I started thinking of that because I think I started kind of putting myself into it. Like I'm first gen born like of a, of immigrants, so, and then I just forgot because again, visually it was just like this giant,
Yeah. My thing is now I want to see a gritty immigration story from Italy of Mario's dad to New York.
Can we do like a backstory?
Awesome. Yeah.
The backstory.
They introduce this world because, in my mind, the struggle with Super Mario is that the story started off of this video game that makes no sense. Like objectively, there's no rules. There's just these turtles that you jump and land on top of. You hit blocks with everybody thought your head for a long time, but it's actually he's punching it. And it's always like, to me, it's always like, just let it be a fucking weirdo thing. We don't need to see Brooklyn. You know what I mean? We don't need to know.
Yeah.
He's just like, I don't know if y'all are a little younger than me, but there was the cartoon, the Super Mario Brothers cartoon, where he gets sucked in.
I think we're the same age.
Yeah,
we're the same age.
Yeah.
Oh, I always thought you were younger than me. It's a youthful.
Thank you.
You're so youthful.
Oh. Why? Thanks. Now I'm blushing.
Yeah. I was like, no, I genuinely
I'll
thought
take it.
Yeah. But there was the cartoon, the Super Mario Brothers cartoon, and then the Super Show, which had this other weirdo guy, like a live action Mario.
Yes.
And they've tried to make this world make sense many times, and it doesn't. They just. One thing I did like about this one is that they lean into the craziness. It's just sure it is what it is.
Yeah.
Manny, did you see similarities from a martial arts movie where there is the training montage?
Yeah,
there are some there. Did you approve of the training montage in the Super Mario Brothers in comparison to other training montages in movie history?
Absolutely, I loved it. I loved how he would make mistakes and he'd have to go and do it over again. It kind of makes me think of like have you ever seen Shaolin Master Killer?
No.
Which one's that one?
I know. I'm like making it makes note.
It's
I
think it's called the now I'm forgetting the alternate title, but it's Gordon Liu. He's his family's been killed by Manchus, and so he goes to train at the Shaolin Temple, and he has all these things. He has these things wrapped around his arms that have knives on them, and he has to carry these buckets of water, and if he drops them, they stab him in the side, and eventually gets to a point where he's able to do it. I loved how he would run and this thing would move and he would fall, and then all of a sudden next he hits this thing, and I guess it makes him small, and all of a sudden he's too weak to do whatever he needs to do and all that other stuff. I loved how and just the creativity the creativity of that also actually kind of did make me think of the sequences that they have in the Spider-Man movies, the animated ones, the Into the Spider-Verse, because just how there are so many less rules to what you can do when it's animated as opposed to when it's live action.
Right.
And so it opens the door for so much creativity. And that's the reason, I guess, that sequence out of the whole movie stood out to me the most. So yeah, I love how it definitely is an homage to all the old school kung fu films, just of
I love montage, man. A good montage makes
reality
a difference, man. Because you have to explain why, like, the hero or the star of the movie, who is brand new to this world, nothing.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just have, like, that's the whole Mary Sue argument for a lot of movies now, where they're like, why are they instantly good at stuff? You know, you need to show the montage. You need to show them training, and it was great that Peach was the instructor. Like, Peach she's
the trainer.
Yeah. And the thing is, at first I was like, I thought they were going to stretch the sequence out too long, because I expected it to be shorter. But even so, I didn't dislike 1 second of it. I wasn't like, okay, come on, you're stretching this out too long. I was like, okay, this training sequence is dope.
I also loved that it was very early on when he got to this world, right? And it felt like when we got our first Nintendo, and I felt like I was going into my own training. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing in this world, but I'm going to figure it out. And you'd get that, and you would die over and over and over again every time you got hit by something. And that felt like that was a nostalgia bomb for me, being 10 years old, trying to get past a level. And I'm just like, oh, I keep missing that one jump. So I was laughing at that.
Very familiar.
Right? I was like, this feels familiar. I've done this, and I have failed at this jump so many times.
I'll tell you what. You make the sound effects noise with your mouth. So many little musical and sound moments in this movie, it hit me like a brick. Like so many little sound effects, the shrinking sound effect, the mushroom sound effect. And then, and one of the things, again, I was like, they were trying to like jam everything in there that people know. And one of the biggest titles that Nintendo has is the Mario Kart series. So once they go to the karts, I was like, okay, so that's now we're in this movie. And I feel like the kart sequence was like a big action piece. I feel like the Smash Brothers style Donkey Kong versus Mario scene was like a big action sequence. And then the training montage was like, you could see that reflected in all of the further action sequences, like in the way that the action was directed. Because we like to think of these movies as like being put together by like millions of people, but there is a guy, the directors, Aaron Horvath, Michael Jelenic, and Peter Leduc, which is the Illuminations guy. They kind of all get credit here, but like they had to have decided certain exact things. And it like there's a lot of whatever the Mario version of Chekhov's gun is that they get, like they pay off as you go. But and the sound, I will say this, when at the end, when Mario gets and Luigi both get the star, the sound cue for that gave me fucking goosebumps, because it was like Rocky, the Rocky theme at the end of Creed. Remember,
even like their commercial, right? The music in the commercial was the theme song from the TV show, the Mario TV show in the 90s.
Yes.
Oh,
so many. There was like, it's like there were a lot of those little things. They had like ringtones, like their cell phone ringtones were throwbacks. But so many little Easter eggs like that.
Yeah.
And they feel earned. Like some of them felt like, like the little jump man in the pizza place is actually the original name of Mario when he was in Donkey Kong. Jumpman. So like there's like a lot of those little Easter eggs, but then there's also like the payoff of things that have to happen, right? Like the star and like you can't have a Mario game without the you can't have it. So so I feel like they earned a lot of it. Now the question is, is this a movie that you feel like deserves the sequel? There's talk of a Zelda movie from Illumination. Do you feel like we're gonna see the Nintendo verse of movies, the Nintendo Cinematic Universe coming up? And what do you want to see in it?
I wouldn't be surprised.
No, I wouldn't be surprised, and I would love it. I would love a Zelda. I would love like a Zelda and a Link, like
Let's build it. Let's build it. What do we want to see? What do we want to see in the Nintendo, the NCU? What do we want to see? What do we want to? Which games would you like to see?
The NCU.
Yeah.
Oh my god! If they just reboot all these Nintendo games, they would make so much money.
I would want to see if they did one next. I would want to see Link and Zelda. That would be like my next if I wanted to. Like if I would
you want it in this style, like in this tone, like kind of funny? Because there was a Link, an animated series with Link being a fucking it was terrible. He was like, "Excuse me, princess." You know, he was like a weird sassy Link. I wouldn't want that. I would love to see the visuals of this, but I want to see a full serious drama deadpan,
like adventure. Okay, yeah, I can see that.
An unflinching fantasy Zelda movie.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. I'm down. I'm like, give me all the Nintendo nerdery. I'm in.
And what other Mario thing do you want? Like, what do you think the sequel? What are we expecting? What do we want to see happen?
That's a good question.
This is time. We're making this. The directors watch this podcast. We're good friends. They are going to take our ideas and make them reality. So go for broke. Go big.
I don't know. You know, I was kind of surprised by Bowser's romantic streak and vulnerability.
Yes.
I mean, maybe a Bowser spinoff. I don't know.
Man, Jack Black was so, and you know what I loved about the promotion? Did you see him doing all of the promotion for this movie? That dude loved playing this character because he literally was at a video game music show and he came out and he sang the Peaches song. Peaches, Peach. He came out. He's been he was fully dressed in like this dope Bowser suit doing interviews, and it was like that guy. I'll tell you, that guy must have had a great time doing this part.
Yeah.
You want to see a Bowser origin story? Do we need a villain origin story for Bowser?
Yeah. Yes. I love origin stories. Like the Maleficent origin story I loved that movie. You know what I mean? So why can't we get a Bowser origin story? Not everyone is mean just because they're mean. Like sometimes things happen. I want to know.
Manny, what is there any thing from a Mario game or movie or do you want to see I want to see the John Leguizamo, Bob Hoskins multiverse appear somewhere in the.
Oh God!
You've seen that movie, right?
Actually, I haven't.
Oh
I've never seen the original one. I remember just hearing. I just remember hearing that it was terrible, and I just never had the opportunity to sit down in front of it, so I've never actually seen it. Although they were showing it here at the New Beverly Cinema. I think it was like a month or two ago.
Yeah, I challenge that movie is a perfect example of not understanding what you have. So like whenever you and look, this movie had some stuff where I feel like it was done for like when you get a studio note, you know, like where this clearly wasn't a note or something was not done by people who understand the product, right? Like all of the Sony Spider-Man movies. Like where they don't fully understand what they have, you know, like they're trying to make Spider-Man into the Dark Knight. It's not that they're not the same. There's the Super Mario Brothers movie would have been incredible if it was not Super Mario Brothers. If it would have been like some other random project, and you know what I mean, like if it was like on a kind of like Super Mario Brothers 2, the video game was originally another video game, and they just skinned it to put Super Mario on there. Oh. Yeah, that was I would like to see like the Super Mario Brothers movie, just or you should just watch it going and not knowing anything.
Yeah. But I will say in a sequel, because I wasn't expecting in the first one that Mario and Luigi were going to be spending so much time apart. I wanted to see them together, just kicking ass throughout the whole movie. So I think that's what I would want to see. I would want to see them interacting and them like playing off each other to defeat whatever villain, or you know what I mean, and
I like it.
Just being together, because I always enjoyed that. That's honestly what I was expecting, and then when they got split up, I was like, oh okay,
yeah,
like,
that's a good
whatever,
point.
Whatever. But yeah, I because they're a team. You know what I mean? So I want to see them be that team as opposed to just at the end.
As a little brother, I was always Luigi, so I was always player 2. So I had an affinity for Luigi. I'm the little brother of my brother and I. And then so it was always like you play together. And it was like I do think that it was good that they showed the brother connection, because I do remember that it feeling more competitive. Like you would get farther, and then Mario would be way farther than Luigi, and then you would go. You'd feel like you were losing in some way. Like it was almost like a race. I'm curious, like the Luigi property of like Luigi's Mansion, which is where he's like basically a Ghostbuster, would be interesting to see. Like have like the Mushroom Kingdom be haunted, and then have to team up with Bowser and all these things to like get rid of the ghosts. Again, Super Mario RPG was like one of my favorite games, so like that story is perfect for a movie. It's where wishes stop getting granted.
I can imagine, like, back to the other Marios, but I can already imagine the jokes where it's like when you're facing the ghosts, they freeze, but then when you move, they follow you. Like I can already see that being like little things like that being worked.
That's a beat, 100%, and I think that we could.
You're just like and then it's like as you're trying to get in between the.
Yes,
the chains coming.
So much perfect, and then there's so right. I mean, it is a full world. I don't want to see Brooklyn. I will say that the ending of the movie where they say to me lost me, where I'm like, I don't give a shit about Brooklyn. I've seen Brooklyn. I was there. It's not, like I don't care about Brooklyn. I want the fantasy magical world of all this stuff, because it's not like they don't have enough stuff to go.
Yeah.
So let's see our ratings and rankings. Hilda, do you have the info?
I do. So this movie had a budget of $100 million. Want to take a stab at the box office worldwide?
Ooh,
it's
400 million.
1.346 billion.
I knew. Nice. Yeah. $1 billion internationally,
1.3, actually 1.3 billion. So our that's a little bit of money.
For sure.
They can afford to make a sequel.
It is. So the movie set multiple box office records, including biggest worldwide opening weekend for an animated film and the highest grossing film based on a video game. It became the highest grossing film so far of 2023. The third highest grossing animated film, and the 15th highest grossing film of all time. So pretty impressive.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So, question: now you're saying that are we in the? You know how like there was a comic book movie era where like every comic book got a movie.
Oh.
Are we now in the video game movie era? Because we had Last of Us. We had Last of Us TV show hit big. We have this Super Mario movie. There's other properties that are coming out based on video games. Do you feel like we have this is the time of the video game?
Like this is the new untapped market?
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, because they already remade almost everything that's already been made. Yeah. So now they have to go to different types of properties. I mean, and they had comic books and video games. I think they tried turning some of them into live action films in the 90s, like Double Dragon and Super Mario Brothers.
Oh my God, Double Dragon.
So now I think, they're going to start trying to turn these video games into narratives.
Hey, Mortal Kombat was a hit, and Manny and I were in the circuits at the same time and I cannot tell you how many times I heard, especially like in katas or weapons, like those brackets at tournaments, the Mortal Kombat theme played over.
Yeah,
everyone chose that. Everyone chose that as their song for musical kata.
What an interesting pocket of nostalgia to be in that the Mortal Kombat movie era, like that weird 1990 when all these amazing movies were made in the 90s, and then all of a sudden Mortal Kombat, like the studios must have been like, what the fuck do these people want? How do they? What is going on?
Too.
Yes, the Street Fighter that we did on Kickflix. What a shit show that was. What did it say? Okay, well, we got to rank this movie. Hilda, what is your ranking and ranking system for Super Mario Brothers 2023?
I had so much fun during this movie. I'm gonna go 4.2 out of 5 sad caged stars.
Oh my God, what a weirdo character that was.
I loved him so much because on the outside he was just shiny and public. Like sometimes when you're just like trapped doing something you don't want to do, that's how I felt. I was just like, I don't want to be here, but I have to be nice. have
the
to get
fully
through this.
nihilistic,
And I was
drop
like,
of like.
I feel like this little cage star. I'm gonna go 4.2 out of 5 cage stars. Sad cage stars.
Manny, what about you?
Do I have to do cage stars, or can I just
No. What is your ranking system? Because you pick your own ranking system.
Okay, I'm going to give it 3 out of 5 mushrooms.
3 out of 5. But good mushrooms or bad mushrooms?
Power up mushrooms.
Power up.
I'll give it power up mushrooms simply because there were things that I liked about it. I don't know. I overall, I personally feel like while there were things in it that were clever, I wanted it to be more clever.
Interesting.
Although I will say there is one during the film opens with their commercial, right? I don't remember exactly what it was, but there was a woman in the commercial and something very subtle that happened that made me laugh out loud.
Yeah.
I was like, I wanted to see more of that throughout the whole movie. So I'm going to give it 3 out of 5.
Sure. I'm definitely going to give it just under 3.8. 3.8 useless penguins.
Nice.
No, to be fair, it's the movie. I have to say this: the movie is for children, new children, not children who were children when the games came out. This is a now movie, right? So you can't hold it accountable to the past. All of the nostalgia, what a nice little gift, like a little icing on the cake. But the cake's not for me. You know what I mean? The cake is for children to market Universal Studios Nintendo World and make sure that people come spend money, because capitalism is always the enemy. So it's absolutely marketing for people to go and get a new like kids to see it and be like, oh, that's great. The irony is that the kids already have games that have infinitely more story than we had when we grew up. So we filled out that world with our own stories. Mm-hmm. Like, why is Mario an Italian guy in overalls in this world with mushrooms and walking, talking turtles? We filled in so many blanks on these older movies that it's hard for like the younger kids who have like Super Mario Galaxy or Odyssey and all these things where there's like legitimate story going on, to then have a movie telling them another story. They're probably more receptive to it. So again, I'm not the target market for this movie. Well, I'm a human being on Earth, and they want everyone to see it, but it's not in my wheelhouse. So for me to give it a 3.8, it's like, it doesn't matter. It's useless. Yeah, it is what it is. The people who love it are gonna love it. Chris Pratt did fine. It was a fine movie. I'm excited to see what it opens up in terms of Zelda and Metroid and all of the other like Nintendo properties that could make a dope Metroid. I'm waiting. That's what I'm waiting for. A
Ninja
Metroid
Gaiden Punch Out or whatever.
Yes.
All those old school games.
Oh my God. Yeah. But that's it. Duck Hunt. Oh my God. I do want to see that movie, the Duck Hunt movie, where it's from the point of view of the dog. The dog just laughs
that would be great.
Well, that's a wrap on Super Mario Bros. We are gonna move on to. I wish we had a sound cue of like cut. Press, that's a wrap. Yeah. Where we're going to go on to the 1988 classic. Peak 80s movie that is Twins, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito. Peak DeVito, I would say. I think this is peak DeVito. We'll start it with it came out in 1988. A physically perfect but innocent man goes in search of his long lost twin brother, who is short, a womanizer, and small time crook. Well, IMDb, you nailed it. Crush the description, because that's what's first impressions or re-impressions. What do we call these? Like because clearly we've seen these movies before, or have you? Maybe you haven't. Hilda, what do you got for first impression on Twins?
I had not seen this movie in so long, like so long. But when we were trying to find a pairing for Super Mario Brothers, I kept thinking about like, oh, what are other movies like with siblings or brothers, and like immediately I thought of Twins, and I just threw it out there, and I was like, oh yeah, like, is it streaming anywhere? So I was watching it and I was just like, everything that I remembered that was funny was still funny. But then there were other things that I had completely forgotten that I was like, that is silly and ridiculous. Like I had, maybe I blocked it out. I totally forgot that they were like connected at the mind. And I was like, okay, I could have done without that. Also, why didn't I remember that from before? I did not. It's like absolutely. And
don't besmirch this perfect movie. That was their connection as brothers. The twin bond, unbroken.
Every time he did that, I was like he would have a moment, and I was just like, oh, okay, I could do without that.
That's so funny.
And but again, I had completely forgotten about that, right? And but I did enjoy rewatching it. God, Danny DeVito is just so funny, funny. But yeah, it was fun rewatching this one after so long.
Super solid. Manny, what about you? What's your first impressions, memories? What do you got for this one?
Well, as a kid, I had never seen the whole movie for whatever reason. I had always only ever caught the end of it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Because the thing is, back in the day, you had HBO, Cinemax. If you weren't there in time to catch it from the beginning, or if you weren't there to press the VCR to record it, you didn't get to see all of it.
Yeah.
So I'd seen the end, and I knew that they were twins, and I knew that they had two sets of twins at the end. And I finally rewatched it, and I agree with it being around the time of peak DeVito, because Throw Mama from the Train. It was not too long after that he did Batman.
Yes.
Right.
And he was the tiny little funny guy who was in all the movies.
Yes.
So yeah, I rewatched it from start to finish. Speaking of Danny DeVito, that was like the very first scene when he climbs out and he lands on the ground. First thing he does is he goes. I was like, that's how you make an entrance to a movie. I was like,
when he goes out the window.
Icon.
Yeah, and he climbs down the thing. And the second he jumps down, he just, I'm here, and then he just starts walking down the street. I was like, okay, let's see how this goes. I was wondering how they were going to be paired up, because I mean, how they were going to actually play off of each other, because, well, they were just such different types, and you didn't know if they were going to have chemistry or not, which fortunately they did. And they played pretty well together, and it was interesting because Arnold Schwarzenegger's character was supposedly like the smartest man in the world, so to speak. And then when he's out in LA, none of that intelligence does anything for him, because he's so innocent that he doesn't know anything. He doesn't realize these guys are trying to rob him. He doesn't trying to snatch his suitcase, or
he's like book smart.
Driving.
He's book smart, but he's not street smart. Like
so he's like
yes.
And that
was great.
I was expecting to see more for them to utilize his intelligence more in the movie, but it was definitely a funny comedy, and there some of the comedy in it definitely stands up to today.
DeVito signed like as soon as he heard that it was Arnold that would play the brother. He was like, has a brother been cast? And they told him it was Arnold. He's just like, he was like the Austrian bodybuilder. He's like, I'm signing. He's like, I'm signing. Yeah. Yes. And then they asked him, and he was just like, I'm in. He's like, nobody will believe that he's my brother. I love where this is going. I'm in. Like it was in immediately. And it was kind of a rushed contract, I read. And they like inked a deal on a napkin, like over lunch. And then later on they like flushed out a formal contract, but he was just like, I'm in. Yeah. He's like, no one will believe this premise. I'm in. Like, this is ridiculous.
So this is the first time I had not seen this movie in forever as well. Like I genuinely was trying to remember it, and I was trying, and one of the things that happens when you do this podcast is like the sometimes the movies feel like homework, and you want to take notes and you want to look, you want to do stuff. But the whole time I was watching it, I was just like, this is good. Like there was like some of it's silly, but there's like a genuine, like the idea of trying to create, like, first of all, let it not be lost on us that a German scientist was trying to do genetic experiments. I want to know where that motherfucker was between 1939 and 1945. I like right, like he's like,
Fair
oh, we've
enough.
experienced to
Did
make
not think
the
of that.
best.
Mike's already tying this into other movies. Like we do that.
Right?
We like
Tying it into
connect.
history.
We
No,
connect
you- no, 100%.
universes on Movie Bros.
I will make a universe out of what you. I will connect
Mike
two
will-
movies.
Do
Don't-
it.
don't make
It's
me-
a talent. It's a talent.
Don't
Mike
make me
has.
bring the Tom Hanksiverse into this. But the Schwarzenegger DeVito pairing was also like so I hadn't seen it in a long time. We'll talk about that later. I'll talk about just my impression of the movie. And I was watching and I was like, oh man, I forgot like the soundtrack is 80s as fuck. And it was
Yes.
it was just I was just like a wash in, like, again, both of these movies had a huge nostalgia punch because I remember Super Mario Brothers was referential, Twins was memories of like, oh my god, I remember the synth thing, the opening of like take out the papers and the trash, like that was a thing that I said as a kid, and to this day I'm like, whenever I hear that song, I'm like, that's the Twins song. Yakata yak, don't talk back. You know, like that shit is. And to be fair, like this is also the era of Schwarzenegger where he's the biggest star in the world.
Yeah.
But it's like with Jean-Claude Van Damme when they had to figure out how to make him French in every part that he plays.
Yeah.
Because he has a thick accent. Like they have to write around the accent.
Yeah.
What a good like because I would have paid money to see Arnold Schwarzenegger try to not do an accent, but it's not gonna work. He'll never be not Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah. So they were like, let's just make him as Arnold Schwarzenegger as we can, and then have Danny DeVito be the foil, the contrast.
Yeah.
And that shit, it works perfectly. And I got it. You know, spoiler alert, my score is going to be high at the end of this because I loved this movie. And here's I would like to also, like, for the classic movie, I'm bringing this to the table. I would love to add context. I did a podcast called Mike Contextualizes the Universe, which I think exists on YouTube still somewhere, where I went through the MCU and I gave with a guy who had never seen it, with my friend Alex who had never seen it. So and we talked a lot about when the movies came out, what was happening around the movies, and what other movies it was competing with, like in time. So this movie came out in 1988. Does anyone want to guess what the number one movie of that year was?
Would it have been
what it came out?
88.
Hilda? Yes, 88.
That is around that time because Back to the Future 1 was 85, I believe.
I will read you the top 10 movies, but the top grossing movies of 1988, just so you can understand where in history this movie falls, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Number 10, Beetlejuice. Number 10 was Beetlejuice. Number 9, Cocktail. This is peak
another
Tom Cruise, maybe
Tom Cruise,
too.
Yeah. Tom Cruise.
Moonstruck.
Okay. Cher.
Number 7, Die Hard.
All that,
Die Hard. 88.
All that year. Oh, geez. What a year.
Number 6, 3 Men and a Baby, which is another 80s classic. Number 5, Crocodile Dundee.
Oh my God.
Crocodile Dundee 2. Number 4, Big. Tom Hanks, Big.
This was all the same year?
This is all the same year. Number 3, Good Morning Vietnam. Number 2, Coming to America. And number 1, Who Framed Roger
Rabbit?
Oh, God.
So this is the time period of the world where all of these movies were in the theater in the same year.
Yeah.
They were released in the same year. So this movie,
that's a solid list.
Super solid. This movie comes in at number 16. It's number 16 for the year. But like, think about all of those movies and like where you were in 1988. Like to that's why this movie resonated so much, because I remembered so much of my life at that time. I was like, oh my God, I was like that's like, to me, I was like 7 or 8. It was perfect little kid age.
I remember
6, 7 is like perfect little kid age.
I remember going to the theater to see that year then Who Framed Roger Rabbit, not knowing, it's
what
like
a trauma-inducing that movie was.
Oh,
I wasn't traumatized by it. I loved it.
I loved it, but yeah, Dip, super scary.
Super scary. the eyes at the end, the judge. Whatever. We'll do that movie.
Yeah, we need to do a Who Framed Roger Rabbit episode.
Yeah.
You know that But back to Twins. Twins
Yeah.
landed Arnold and DeVito their biggest paychecks. Did you hear about this?
No.
They did not.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They
so
took
they
a cut
did-
of something, right?
They didn't take a salary. So they didn't take a salary. They took. They wanted to be paid 20% of the film's box office returns to do it, resulting in them receiving the biggest paychecks of their entire career. You want to take a stab at the number? It's super high.
Is it something like it's 10 million or something like that?
It's 35 million.
300?
35.
Just guessing.
35 mil for the film
shit.
through international sales, video and DVD sales, and TV screenings.
Is this in
Ultimate-
1988 money? Because that's
Yes.
a whole other conversation.
This is an 88 money. He made more money from Twins than he made from any of the Terminator movies.
Really?
Isn't that crazy?
Wow. I would have never guessed that.
Can we?
Yeah.
Can we?
I
yeah.
love to look up these like fun facts. That's always where, like, after I watch a movie, that's like my favorite thing to go back, and even movies I've already seen but maybe I didn't know, like, things, and like when I find little nuggets like this, I'm like, oh, that's so exciting to find out.
Yeah, I saw on IMDb that the movie made its they made back the profits. They made back their budget multiple times over. I was just like, I was like, good Lord.
Their budget was only 18 million and they made 216.6 million.
Yeah.
I mean, look, to be able to make that much money, it's a different world now, right? Like this with streaming and all that stuff. Everyone's talking about the box office this year and how weird everything has been, and like people still go to the movies, but there's too many options. This was the time where like VCRs were new. Like you couldn't, like, Blockbuster was still fairly young, or not, like not really, but like going to the movies was an event. It was a thing that was like, you went to the movies, you had to go to the movies, everything was in the movies, because you had to wait like years for it to for that thing it felt like it anyway, for it to come to Blockbuster.
Cable.
I love the supporting cast of this. Also, like when Kelly Preston comes out, I was like, "Aw,
yeah,
rest in peace, Kelly Preston." But like, she was the perfect foil, like the perfect partner for Schwarzenegger, because you could feel like she's beautiful, whatever. For Schwarzenegger to be like, I'm a nerd, I don't know how to talk to women, was perfect.
Yeah. And did you know, this was another, like, I didn't remember it, but now seeing it again, Heather Graham was young Mary Ann. Yeah, she was young Mary Ann, and it was actually in an uncredited role. This was like, it was like right before she blew up. But I was watching it, I was like, oh my God, that's young Heather Graham.
Yeah, it reminds you how long she's been around.
But doesn't she look great for how long she's been around? She's one of those people that does it, that has aged very, 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 like, well. She still looks great. There was other known supporting actors. David Caruso was in there.
Yeah,
Al Gregg. Remember David Caruso? I always know the lady who plays, whenever she pops up in other things, I'm like, oh, that's Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito's mom.
Yeah,
that's how I always knew her when I would see her pop up and stuff.
The assassin, I remember him because he was the father in Stand By Me. The second I saw him, I was like, that's the dad from Stand By Me.
Yes.
Oh, yes, you're right.
Yeah, Marshall Bell.
Oh, we got to put Stand By Me on the. Stand By Me is one of my favorites.
It has to be on.
It's one of my favorites too. It's
I love Stand By Me.
Brilliant movie.
Now, I have to ask, if you were to have been raised on an island, and you said you wanted to see more of his intelligence come through. They say at the beginning that Arnold Schwarzenegger's character, what is it, Vincent? No, that's Julius. Julius speaks 12 languages. Mm-hmm. I would have killed to see Arnold Schwarzenegger try to speak Spanish to a Mexican guy in LA, or I would see to speak Italian.
Missed opportunities.
If he would have busted out some Mandarin, Chinese, like they say it at the beginning, how genius he is, and I didn't think about that until you said that, Manny. That is like, oh, they only really talk about how he's like, oh, the third thing when you in an engagement or some scenario, like he pulls some of that stuff out, but it would have been so much better to have him be like a legit genius.
Yeah, it would have been great to see.
He's on an island, like reading books, like.
I mean, let's start like winding in, because I do want. Is there anything that blew your mind that you forgot that you saw again? And you're like, oh my god, I can't believe it! I forgot about that part. Because the whole movie hinges around technology. Like I forgot that it's like, oh right, it's an engine. I thought it was drugs.
Yeah.
Like I was like, why were they after him? I forgot the assassin plot. Like was the whole point of it. Was there anything about that like triggered for you where you were like, oh yeah?
I forgot about how at the end with the assassin, they pull that thing and that huge thing of chains just endlessly falls on top of him.
Like a fucking cartoon.
I was like, oh yeah, that's how they ended up not getting killed by the assassin.
Hilda?
I was like, it was ridiculous.
That I did remember, and that is still my favorite moment of like the entire movie, because it's just that, like you said it perfectly, it is like a cartoon. It's that prolonged, like just when you think it's going to be over, you're already laughing, but then you pause because you think it's done, and it keeps dropping. So you're like, oh, I'm back to laughing again.
Yeah. Well, I love. I mean, this is how are we rating this classic, Hilda? Yeah. Let's hear. Well, we got some of the numbers already. What do we got?
So the numbers. So it is an older movie, which can be a little weird with ratings, because obviously the ratings are, have been put in after the fact. But right now it has a 42% critic score with an audience score of 38, which is like super low. But again, really? It's an older movie, and they tend to be a little.
This
lower.
is a Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, these are the Rotten Tomatoes scores.
But IMDb, I think it has like a 6 something, which for a comedy is actually not that bad.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
6.1 on IMDb.
Yeah. So that's the two spectrums there. I'm gonna go for my rating scale, which is a good segue from what we were just talking about. Mine was actually chain drops. So I'm gonna go 3.7 out of 5 chain drops. As my rating.
3 point. What was it?
3.7 out of 5.
Interesting.
Chain drops.
Yeah, interesting. 3.5 chain drops. Manny, what do you got for us? Your ranking system.
I was going to give it a 3.5 biceps, because they just had Arnold Schwarzenegger taking off his shirt like 3-4 times. He's like, "Yes, I have a perfect body, and they're going to let me take off my shirt." He's in a towel, and then
I love that he's like, "Are you having an allergic reaction or something?"
And he's like, "Good God, the back's worse than the front."
That was great.
3.5 solid. Anything over a 3 is a recommendation. I mean, what can you say? Like, it's hard because I don't have the same frame of. Everybody has like a different frame of reference, but this movie was iconic to me for some reason. Like, it was just such a movie I've seen like a million times. Coming back to it, I will give it a straight 4. There's some jokes that are dated. I will give it 4. Rowing a little boat 42 miles to the next island. As opposed to the boats that come and drop off gear, like just get on one of those.
The same thing. I was like, he's gonna row.
Are you serious? The opening of it was showing him rowing away in a little like inflatable dinghy. Was hilarious, and he's cruising. Like, he clearly there's a motor in there, but they're showing him like rowing, like he's going like 40 miles an hour. Like,
right?
Yeah, straightforward. I love that movie, and there are moments that you kind of. Okay, it's old, it's age, but it's like peak DeVito, peak comedy Schwarzenegger, and a peak 80s. I think for me. That's it for the show, everybody. Thank you all for checking out Movie Bros. We're gonna do a promotion. You can follow me at Mike Mercadal. Hilda, what can they follow you at?
You can follow me at Tabletop Gamer Girl on Instagram for all of your board game recommendations.
That is true. And Manny, where can people see you actually, like, in the world, on the internet? And also, what's something you've worked on recently that you would like to share?
Well, I recently did like I said, I did some short films here. One was just put on to Instagram, and there are other ones that are in the process. They're in post-production, so we'll see those in a little bit. And I've actually been doing some writing. I've been writing scripts.
Oh,
so
very exciting.
I completed my first script. I started writing a second one, and I was just watching this. I was just rewatching that TV show Midnight Mass. So it kind of gave me an idea for a short film that I wanted to write. But yeah, if you want to keep up with me, I'm on Instagram at Fighting Actor.
At Fighting Actor. It's on the screen if you are a watcher. If you are a podcast listener, you can check us out at Movie Bros on, it was Movie Bros Pod, or you can just check out YouTube on the Geek Bro Network. You could just go to geekbro.net and you will get all of the shows on the Geek Bro Network.
Yep. They're on YouTube and on Facebook. You can find us
on
there
Facebook.
as well.
That's right.
Yep, and Apple Podcasts.
Apple Podcast, leave a review leave a review on Apple Podcast. 5 stars is preferable. If you're not doing anything, if you're not doing anything less than 5 stars, no, thank you. It's okay. You don't have to just say nothing if you can't say anything nice. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you everybody for watching. Thank you everybody for listening. And that's how movie podcasts get made.
Bye.